This is the Horse Radio Network.
This is episode 35 of Retired Racehorse Radio on the Horse Radio Network, brought to you today by Kentucky Performance Products and Bates Saddles. Retired Racehorse Radio is your guide to the adoption, care, and training of the retired racehorse. Brought to you in cooperation with the Retired Racehorse Project and New Vocations Racehorse Adoption Program.
On today's show, we have Jen Roytz, the director of the Retired Racehorse Project, joining us to give us an update on the Thoroughbred Makeover for October. We chat with Dr. Stuart Brown, who is the new Equine Safety Director for Keeneland Racetrack, to talk about his new role and the changes he's hoping to bring. And Jamie answers our listeners' training questions as well, which is always a good time. And if we can wrap it all up with New Vocations, where Sarah and Leandra bring us some news and our adoptable horse of the week. Stay tuned.
And they're off on Retired Racehorse Radio, the podcast that is your guide to the adoption, care, and training of the retired racehorse.
This is Jamie Jennings in Norman, Oklahoma.
And this is Joy Hills trying not to sweat in Kalamazoo, Michigan. And you're listening to Retired Racehorse Radio.
How's it going, Joy? How's life? What do you mean sweaty? You're in Michigan, for God's sake.
Yeah, it's 95 degrees at 100% humidity. I am a northerner, Jamie. This isn't normal.
I feel like you're being a little dramatic. It cannot be 100% humidity and 95 degrees. People would die up in your state. Oh my God, Michiganders would just literally die.
Yeah, we're just not going outside. We're just staying inside. My poor horses are just there, just eating. I guess it's the equivalent of meat sweats. Just hay sweats. They eat and they have just butt sweat glistening on them. You haven't even worked.
Oh, man. I know. I picked up some horses today from Horse and Hound to come down for training, and I just can't get them out of the trailer fast enough, because being in a trailer at this time of year is so dangerous, so I have everything open, and believe it or not, it's probably about 89, 90 degrees here with, some humidity, not 100%, but it sounds like it's better in Oklahoma than it is in Michigan right now. But they had a little bit of sweat, but I was pretty happy with how they traveled. So just keeping them moving, keeping all the windows open, just trying to be safe.
I can imagine. So, it's just an interesting time. I don't even know. I know people who are showing over the last couple of weeks, just small shows, obviously, with everything going on with the pandemic, which we'll kind of get into with one of our guests later today. But yeah, I couldn't imagine being out there this weekend trying to do a dressage show in a coat. And oh my gosh.
Do you know what, though? I think back to when I was a kid doing horse shows. That was a little while ago, a couple years ago, and there was no tech fabric, Joy. You were wearing a cotton shirt and I showed in my brother's Sunday school jacket, and it was a wool Sunday school jacket. That is what I had. Is what it is. And tall rubber boots. Oh my God. I was so jealous that the girls had leather boots, but then they couldn't get them on and I could just pull on my rubber boots. But yeah, the clothing for horse shows has changed so much. You might as well have a dang built-in air conditioning in half of these jackets. They're so nice. But yeah, I remember that. Now you, in the wintertime, don't you have a heated vest or something?
Yes, because technology is amazing.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. Here I am, I have a wool show coat that I got out of my brother's Sunday school.
I should probably check my privilege at the door on that one, shouldn't I?
Yeah.
But you make a fair point, Jamie. I really shouldn't be complaining about how hot it is, because let's face it, no one cares how sweaty we are, but they are going to care about all the amazing updates we have coming. We have some really great guests today. But first, let's take it to our premier sponsor, Kentucky Performance Products.
She swallowed hard as they walked into the start box. She could feel his muscles tense under her leg. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Have a great ride. She didn't have to ask. He galloped out of the box and across the field toward their first training level course. His ears pricked. Her heart pounded. He attacked each obstacle with confidence, clearing them with room to spare. A huge smile broke out on her face as she crossed through the finish flags. She leaned forward and buried her face in his neck. Their bond of love and trust blocked out all else. This love story is brought to you by Elevate. Research proven to have superior bioavailability, Elevate supplies the essential vitamin E often missing from the equine diet. Its all-natural formula supports healthy muscle and nerve functions. The horse that matters to you matters to Kentucky Performance Products. Call 859-873-2974 or visit kppusa.com to order today.
Well, we have Jen Roytz returning to Retired Racehorse Radio. You've heard her on our show before. She's the director of the Retired Racehorse Project, and she's coming on today to give us an update of what's going on with the makeover for 2020. Welcome to the show, Jen.
Thanks for having me. How are you doing through this non-traditional year?
I would say it's had a lot of ups and downs, had more horse time in than normal, and that's always a plus. But yeah, it's definitely been an unpredictable year, and I can't imagine it been any easier for you guys at the Retired Racehorse Project.
Yeah, I mean, usually in the spring into the summer, we're on the road at major events. Like, we do a lot at the Land Rover Kentucky 3-day event. We do a lot at Briarfest. We do Equitana later in the year. Like, we're always on the go trying to put on clinics to teach people how to retrain off-track thoroughbreds, or seminars, or having our booth and selling merchandise. And all of that is not happening, just like everyone else's events and plans and work lives. All that is not happening. So it's definitely been different, but we've tried to kind of pivot, which I feel like is the word of 2020, pivot into doing more virtual executions of our mission. Like we did a series that's ongoing called 5-Minute Clinic, where we get professional trainers from different disciplines to give a clinic on a simple exercise or skill that they think is very helpful in retraining racehorses. So we've had people like Lainey Ashker did one, Buck Davidson did one, Stevie McCarran did one. So it's been like a nice way to kind of reinvent ourselves a little bit. But yeah, it's a different year.
That's definitely a creative solution, though, because I can't imagine how your competitors for the year are doing as well, trying to get their horses on track when everything is kind of going off the rails across the country. Have you been communicating with them on what's coming up or how to prepare? Or?
Well, yeah. So we announced this week, as people may or may not have heard, that we have had to postpone this year's Thoroughbred Makeover. We're definitely not canceling it, because our number one priority was not to take away opportunities from our competitors who are taking these horses off of the track and preparing them for this year's makeover. But, there were so many factors we were thinking about. We sent survey to our competitors, actually one in April, one in June, just asking them kind of how they were affected by the pandemic, how they were feeling about how prepared their horses, how they were affected financially. We also, we're a nonprofit, so we were affected financially, just like every other nonprofit in the country was. Our fundraising is down, and a lot of our sponsors have been affected as well, and their ability to invest the way they typically do in their sponsorships is also down in a lot of cases. And so we also looked, what the horse park is requiring for their COVID-19 risk management procedures. They adopted all of the USCF rules, which means no spectators, no hospitality, and a lot of stringent guidelines. So we went, line by line through their guidelines to try to see how that would affect us and what the cost would be. And so the cost is over $15,000 just to implement all of those guidelines. But at the same time, if you can't have spectators, you can't do a vendor fair, and can't do hospitality, and you can't do a competitor party. And so all these things that we use to monetize the makeover and we get sponsored, we can't do this year. And so part of what we asked the competitors in the survey we sent them is, if we couldn't have a vendor fair, if we couldn't have a competitor party, if we had to make all of these changes we would have to make, how would that affect the enjoyment of the event for you? And the majority of them said it would be a significantly less enjoyable event for them. So we kind of factored all of that in and talked with our board about it, and the board and the staff came to a unanimous decision to postpone the makeover. So next year, we've already booked our dates with the horse park. It's going to be October 12th through 17th, and we're going to do a double makeover. So 2020 horses can compete in 2020 classes, and then the 2021 horses will compete in separate classes. So that was the best shot we had at retaining prize money for the people who are preparing horses this year, and also just putting them in the position to prepare their horses the way they want to, instead of kind of being behind the eight ball and being rushed and not having access. Like for a lot of them, they didn't have access to elective veterinary procedures, for example, from March until June. So like if their horse needed injections or a chip removed or needed chiropractic adjustments or, PEMF or any of that kind of stuff, they couldn't do it. So that put a lot of people behind right there. Even if they could ride, they couldn't, So we're just trying to do it's in the best interest for the competitors and for the horses, and obviously for the long-term viability of our organization as well.
Absolutely. But I mean, we're not just keeping riders safe, obviously, with everything happening with the pandemic, but it is keeping horses safe and making sure they're able to compete at the best of their ability. And I mean, yes, it's a bummer we don't get to go to the horse park this year and see the makeover, but it's the first double makeover. I mean, that's going to be such a contrast and such an event for people to look forward to, because it's the first one. It's an experience.
Yeah. We keep joking in the office, it's going to be a mega makeover extravaganza.
I want that t-shirt, Jen.
I know we need to make that happen. But like Kirsten Green in our office is so good about logistics. And so we really looked at how many hours of competition are in a typical competition day, and how many rings we have available, and how many horses we would think we'd have, and how many disciplines they'd be competing in, all that kind of stuff, and really thought through how can we make this happen and accommodate double the horses, So it's going to be a really cool event. I'm excited about it. I'm just bummed for the people this year that it's not happening this year. But it was, like I said, there's so many different factors that weigh into it. At the end of the day, we're a nonprofit, and we're just not in the financial position to be able to spread ourselves so thin without the support of sponsorship and monetizing events, But in light of not being able to do the competition side, we are going to be able to do some really cool virtual initiatives. Like we're going to have our ASPCA Makeover Marketplace that we do every year on site. And we usually, we print catalogs and send those out to a mailing list and whatnot. We're going to be able to expand that this year. We're going to make that virtual. The marketplace catalogs will go out to everyone who gets our magazine that has a 10,000 piece distribution. Plus, we're going to expand who we get that to in other ways as well. And since we're not going to be marketing the makeover itself, a lot of our marketing budget can be invested in marketing these thoroughbreds as sport horse prospects to the equestrian world. So I actually think that might be a silver lining to all of this, that we're really going to be able to bolster the ASPCA Makeover Marketplace. And then we'll do other virtual initiatives too, like a virtual vendor fair and webinars and virtual clinics, stuff like that. So we'll try to still have as much educational content and information, just fun stuff as we can in a year that is full of camps,
Oh, that's really making lemonade out of lemons, though. And it's so exciting. And we're here to support it 100% of the way, too. If people want to learn more about how they can find these virtual clinics and keep up with the ASPCA Makeover Marketplace, where would you recommend them to go, Jen?
They can go to tbmakeover.org. That's the makeover website. Or they can go to retiredracehorse.org. Or they can email info@retiredracehorse.org if they have any specific questions, or just if there's any way we can help them. It's just like nobody saw the pandemic coming. I keep joking that it's like you look both ways before you cross the street and you think you're being safe, and then you get hit by a plane. Like you just cannot prepare for anything this year. So we're trying to do what's best for everyone and retain as many possibilities for people as we can.
Oh, thank you guys for putting the effort and keeping all of our horses and us safe. We appreciate it. Thanks, Jen.
For sure. Thanks.
Bates Saddles offer highly specialized saddles for every discipline, engineered to bring out the best in you and your horse. Underneath the finest European leather, you will feel the power of innovation. For you, the rider, enjoy instantaneous comfort, optimal balance, and seamless contact with your horse, leaving you free to concentrate on your aids. For your horse, the Care Cushion System and Easy Change Fit solution ensure their absolute comfort and your peace of mind. Revolutionize your riding experience and fulfill your true potential by riding in a Bates saddle. Visit batesaddles.com to find out more. That's batesaddles.com. Well, we have a special treat tonight. We have Dr. Stuart Brown, who has had a long and amazing career with Haggard Equine Medical Institute, but has just accepted a new role at Keeneland as the Equine Safety Director. So since 2020 is kind of the year about safety, seemed great to have him on the show. Welcome to Retired Racehorse Radio, Dr. Brown.
Well, thank you for having me.
Of course, of course. So just very high level, tell us a little bit about what you have done as an equine vet at Haggard.
So, I truly grew up in the practice at Haggard Equine Medical back in the former days of it being Haggard Davidson McGee. I was sold and raised here in Versailles, Kentucky, so I grew up in the central Kentucky area and was truly a product of the central Kentucky horse population. And throughout the time that I spent working on area horse farms with mares and foals and yearlings and stallions in the thoroughbred industry predominantly, I had the great fortune to be mentored along the way by a lot of the veterinarians that were a part of the Haggard Davidson McGee practice, who took a great interest in me and understood my aspirations for becoming an equine practitioner and going to veterinary school. A lot of my motivation was really rested in wanting to do all I could to take care of horses in the greatest extent possible. And so I committed myself to developing a veterinary education and a professional career that allowed me to give back to the horses that I grew up with and got to care for. And I was very, very fortunate over the last 30 years to work on a lot of area horse farms where I grew up, also, working and caring for horses, and alongside a lot of the people that I grew up with working in the industry that cared for those horses. And so I've really sort of been living the dream, so to speak, throughout my veterinary career, and I got to have the great opportunity to come home and practice in this practice that has such a storied tradition, working in so many of the aspects of the thoroughbred industry and the people that take care of these great horses.
You can tell just the way you're talking about it. Like, you are a man who got his dream job. That is amazing. Oh man, that's great. I've really been very, very blessed and very, very fortunate. I tell a lot of people when I go and have served on committees and commissions and different things that I do that are away from here, and tell them about, what this industry is really about, because living here in what is the factory floor of the thoroughbred industry, I tell people all the time I have the best view of anyone sitting in the room outside my office window as I travel around on the farms and going to the places that I get to take care of the patients I see every day. So how do you expect all of your expertise as an equine vet to play a role in your new position as the Equine Safety Director?
I really think, I have also, again, been blessed with this incredible opportunity to fulfill a role that the Keeneland Association, which is such a huge part of the community that is part of the central Kentucky landscape of the thoroughbred industry, that they've had this time-honored, promise that is based upon service to this industry and to this area. And at the top of that pyramid has really been this commitment to the horse. It was an entity that was built by horsemen in this area to support the industry here. And part of their evolution in terms of the footprint that they have for being leaders for the thoroughbred industry also, rests in this commitment to the horse. And so, given this opportunity and looking at what they are looking to accomplish and sort of having a role for an equine safety director over all their operations, both in racing and in sales, provides me an opportunity to take all these experiences that I've had, both as a horseman here, growing up in this area and working, within the sort of nursery bed of the thoroughbred industry, and then to have a career like I've had, that I actually got to spend a lot of time with horses as in their juvenile part of their life, growing up and being raised on these farms, and then to help to participate in their racing careers, in terms of looking after their care for a lot of the clients that I would consult with, and then actually to care for a lot of them when they come back in retirement, both as brood mares and stallions, has given me a really tremendous bank of, I've sort of built this unique toolkit. And over the last, I'd say 15 years of my professional career, I've also had this opportunity to work alongside a lot of my colleagues that are racetrack practitioners, serving on a number of committees and commissions that I have been on, and to gain a lot of insight about the things that they're trying to do to advocate for the horse. And I'd like to think that this, really unique opportunity to give back to an industry that's meant so much to me, it really resonated a lot with me with this opportunity with Keeneland, because I can provide this really unique interface for the horses that obviously I've committed a lifetime to caring for, that make up our industry, but also, helping to bring some understanding of what all these different groups do and participation in this industry that they bring to ultimately to caring for the horse. And so it gives me an incredible opportunity in terms of advocacy for all those horses and the opportunity to give back.
Absolutely. Oh man, that's fantastic. And I think
hold on, I gotta say too. I say, hey, Dr. Brown, it's Jamie. I gotta say the view at your office doesn't suck either. I mean, come on.
It's pretty nice. We're very, very fortunate to be here in central Kentucky. It's even in the hotter summer months, it's still a very, very beautiful place to be. And I'd have to say it's always a place I look forward to coming home to when I leave and go away from here. Yeah,
it's always nice to come home, especially when you're going home. Monday morning, you got to go to the office, and your office is Keeneland. So I get it. In the morning, pretty there's beautiful not a more there's not a more beautiful place and magical place to be at Keeneland. I galloped racehorses there when I was a kid, and I mean there's something magical about driving in for Absolutely. Sure. So what are some of the changes that you plan on making at Keeneland as far as being the safety officer?
Yeah, I think as specifically relative to the racing of the equation, there's been an awful lot that's been dedicated in the industry to what can we do for risk prevention? What are the things that we can implement across the industry to help, identify the horse that might be at risk, those horses that we definitely want to try to help or to assist that are in competition or in race training that, may be little clues or things that we can kind of sort out to kind of help to protect horses ultimately. We know, there are lots of things that we certainly can identify that are things that have been seen and we've learned about through the Equine Injury Database, the Jockey Club, and other groups have helped to present. The work of Tim Parkin and a lot of folks has given us really good insights to things that we can do to help care for the racing equine athlete. Ultimately, the thoroughbred horse is such a versatile athlete and such a versatile individual. And many of those horses, also have tremendous careers even beyond flat racing, or even steeplechase racing.
Hence this show, Retired Racehorse Radio, that you're currently talking on.
And that's actually been a really big part of my life as well. Somebody who's also bred and raised horses and had race horses, and taken a number of those horses and reacquired a lot of the ones that I've bred or raised that have gone on into eventing careers. And so, the things that we do in racing, the things that we're doing to advocate for their safety, translate into things even after their racing careers are over. All the things that we do are comprehensive in terms of their care. And so the things that we can do working alongside the private practitioners that make up the colony of people that are working with the horsemen and the trainers at Keeneland that care for those horses to help advocate for their interest and for caring for those horses in the ultimate way is providing greater and greater resources to take care of those equine athletes. And so one of the things that we really hope to build on there is more and more of this, taking this information that we've begun to acquire and then utilizing that in terms of putting it in place to advocate for those horses and working with the horsemen.
And when you talk about information that you're utilizing, I know that Keeneland, along with, I believe, Churchill, you guys are kind of in the forefront of banning Lasix.
Well, and so what we have worked on, and I worked on as well as chairman of the Equine Drug Research Council, along with Keeneland and Churchill Downs and the horsemen in the state and the veterinarians, was to, it's been difficult for the industry to get its hands wrapped around the Lasix issue. And it's obviously been, quote unquote, kind of a lightning rod issue for the industry. And one of the places to sort of start with is, where do we go from here? It's whether you're pro Lasix or you're against Lasix. We certainly recognize that there, have been challenges as to where Lasix really fits into the landscape of controlling EIPH. And so as we seek to learn more and more about the condition, as we seek to learn more and more about other potential treatments for the condition that may be more effective with Lasix, we also wrestle with the fact that internationally, we are often cast to be way out of step with the rest of the world. And so one of the things that's happened with Churchill and Keeneland have supported, especially as they're doing now, is writing races for 2-year-olds that are Lasix free. Because one of the things that we struggle with now from the standpoint of having seen so many horses put on Lasix is we don't really know the true incidence number. And so we've been a part of, within the Kentucky horse racing circuit, looking for ways to kind of move toward taking Lasix out of race day, assessing, how those horses, do with or without Lasix use, but also supporting the population of horses that are older and 3 and 4 year olds that are non-stakes competition in years ahead, to have them in Lasix free, races that are in stakes competition, but supporting those horses that may need it, that are the sort of lower level, lower grade pleaders that, are trying to maintain good pulmonary health so that they can stay in race training. So yes, you're right. We've been in the forefront of trying to, quote unquote, move the needle on the Lasix issue.
Mm-hmm. Now, for those that don't know, Lasix is a diuretic that they started giving to horses that they would bleed, exercise-induced pulmonary hemorrhaging. And how, just for those listening, how did Lasix become so popular? It became a drug that everybody uses, no matter whether they've been proven to have bleeding or not.
Well, and so one of the things that I think that, has kind of happened with EIPH over the years is lots and lots of folks have, been in a situation where Lasix use has sort of been rooted in, how do we best care for the equine athlete? And so it's efficient. It's effective, sometimes in varying degrees, and it's also been inexpensive. And it's also been something that we could also regulate. So we know that the integrity part of caring for the racehorse is also in, good drug testing methodology, so that we can make sure that we care for the racehorse, so that we know that we're protecting the racing athlete. And Lasix as an adjunct, medication for prevention of EIPH or for bleeding in the racehorse is something that we can regulate. And so it's been professed, in terms of its use to protect, the health of the lungs of a racing athlete, and in so much as a welfare issue and taking care of those racing athletes, we've often looked at it as sort of something that we could use as a preventative, because we're trying to prevent future episodes of that. Now, today, as it exists, we find that a lot of horses are actually on this Lasix bleeder medication, whether or not they've actually really demonstrated the need. And so what we're trying to do now is step back from that, understand better about what the true need is for it, and then be able to be in the best position to advocate for the racing athlete. And so that's where we find ourselves today, and trying to sort of be in a better seek to understand position about its use. Gotcha.
Now, I believe is opening day in a couple days.
So yes, Keeneland's going to have this short summer meet that begins on the 8th. So,
which is unusual because it's usually April and October. But that's now it's going to be interesting because Keeneland, which is a very bustling place on any race day, no spectators.
No spectators, right. And so now, it's going to be, as we've all experienced with the pandemic and the COVID-19 situation, we've been fortunate enough in a lot of situations because horses have continued to be trained on many of these racetrack locations. We're at least been fortunate to actually have racing continue, but have had to do it all spectatorless. And so, through simulcasting and whatnot, at least the signal has been able to be maintained for people to watch, these, majestic horses in competition, but obviously without, the surroundings of a crowd. And so many racetracks are now beginning to try to look at, whether or not we can allow owners, which Keeneland's going to try to do, for their race meet, so that at least those people can come and participate in the actual racing experience. But this unique meet will be like none other at Keeneland, where it's obviously a place that's highly coveted socially for lots of people to go and to enjoy racing and to have the experiences racing as it was meant to be, and it'll be a very, very unique summer meet this time, since we were unable to have and host the spring meet in April.
Wow, amazing. Well, it's going to be something to watch for sure. It'll be strange not seeing all those dressed up people in the crowd, but it'll be interesting. Well, listen, thank you so much for so much of your time. I know you guys have a big fundraiser coming up, but Dr. Brown, obviously we appreciate your time, and thank you for coming on, and we hope we can check back in with you another time.
Absolutely. I'd enjoy that. And thanks for all you're doing for on the aftercare side of the need to advocate for the thoroughbred horse, and be happy to help anytime or anywhere we can. So thank you so much.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. Hopefully we're going to we're going to hunt down your new president, because that's pretty awesome. You have a new woman president at Keeneland. So that's awesome.
Shannon Arvin's great. Yeah. She would be a wonderful person for you all to have as an interview as well.
All right. Fantastic. Well, we'll get in touch with you so we can get in touch with her. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Have a great night.
You all have a good day. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
And from the back of the pack on the outside, Commanding Curve is taken second. But California Chrome shines bright in the Kentucky Derby.
And now it's time for the new Vocations Winner's Circle Adoptable Horse of the Week.
Well, Leandra, thank you so much for being on with us from New Vocations. And when I clicked on the Adoptable Horse of the Week, I actually audibly said, "Oh my God, he's so pretty!" Like, he is so pretty. Tell me about number one. Let me tell you, he's a 2017 15-3 hand dark bay gelding. Not a lick of white on him, which I love, but he's just drop dead gorgeous. Now, his name is Storyteller. He's a gelding. Why the heck is his barn name Beyonce?
Good question. He is Beyonce because my crew at the barn, my riders, were inspired by Beyonce's song Ego, which I will totally admit I hadn't heard before, and now it's the thing that gets stuck in my head every single day, and I'm not mad about it. But he has such a big ego. He's one of those horses that can march into the room, or ring in this case, and you can't miss him. And I'll take a one step back and say he does actually have white on him. You just can't see it. He's a little tiny star that hides under his forelock. But little asterisk to that as well is he has a white speckling on the front of his left front leg that I've never seen before. It's not like bird catcher spots. It's like, it looks like almost like brindling white. And
I just thought he had some powder on him or something.
No,
it looks like a dusting of baby
white
powder.
Marking.
Okay, that's crazy.
No, it's like his fairy dust. They just blotted it right on him. But he has, so back to the ego component of it, they call him Beyonce because of his ego. He just is one of those horses who's like, if he were a person, we would describe him as outgoing. It's like he has that loud energy, and he is unforgiving. And because of that, you're kind of drawn to him, and he's gorgeous, obviously. So that whole package there, it just has the zest and the attitude and the whole appeal of Beyonce. So that's who, despite the gender difference, we just felt he needed to have that. But he's a chunky 15-3. I think some people, they hear 15-3 and they say, well, is that 16? So I don't want it. And for some reason, 16 just seems to be the cutoff. And I always have to remind people it's just an inch difference. And with these guys, he's 3 years old. So chances are he's going to grow a little.
He's going to grow, yeah.
My horse, even, I'm 5'7", and my horse is 15-3. He just grows sideways. But if you watch me ride him, I don't look out of place on him. My leg doesn't go below his belly. So it really depends on the body size. And he just has that chunkier, bigger build.
He does.
So,
He's a bigger dude. Now he never
I'm
raced.
assuming then that's correct.
So you were saying
I was going to ask you if you saw his video, actually.
Oh no, I haven't seen the video yet. Hold on, because I was coming up with a name for him, and I think that like his name would have been like Jay-Z if he's got an ego, and like Beyonce. I mean, come on, I'm just here.
Yep. I don't disagree with you, but it's one of those things that just was like a sticky name, and now like, just like with the song, I can't get it out of my head. But of course, we hope that anybody who adopts him embraces whatever name they choose to name. But just as a shout out to his spirit animal as a human, I would say Beyonce was like had come to mind. But so I asked about the video because this is a horse who was the transformation butterfly of this process, where he just loved to play and not to focus under saddle at first. But I am super proud of my rider, Julie, and this horse and their process together in growing, because he really shows you what a developed and focused young horse he is becoming. You could see him trying to give to the bit. You could see him really trying to engage his hind end. And he's one of those horses who I think is just going to continue to become more and more amazing. So I just am so proud of both of them in that video, because they just, I mean, what a package. And I think that he'll continue, like I said, to make that progress with his adopter, hopefully. So we're looking for the right kind of person who can take a joke, because he likes to give them still. He has that ego. And I think that with the right kind of person who can have that sort of soft seed and soft hand and not suppress that personality, but sort of embrace it and be able to package all that energy, that they're going to go on and do great things. We keep having ideas at the same time.
I know, because we're that good. Well, I did notice that he formerly had a bow, but they've treated it with everything. Stem cells, shockwave, laser. Oh my God, they did everything. So what a lucky horse to have that much treatment on an injury like that. And heck, he looks pretty darn sound to me.
I know, I'm watching his canter and I'm just like, oh, he's so dreamy.
You're not going to see it. And if I told you he had a bow and you're just looking at these pictures, chances are you're not going to see it right off the bat. It's not one of those things where you can see it from across the field. He just has it in his history. So it's something to be mindful of. And of course, being conscious of that moving forward and considering what he's going to be able to do, sure. But I think this is one of those kind of horses who he's going to determine what he's going to do and nobody's going to tell him otherwise. So just going to take the right kind of person to team up with him, because he's at that big energy, fast wit. And so you just need somebody who's on the same page as him, and then it'll be unstoppable.
Wow, cool. Well, hey, as usual, I like to surprise you with a question about training, and I'm going to make it no different today. I'm just going to throw something out, because this actually, I ask our listeners what they wanted to hear from you and me coming up with all these questions for thoroughbreds. So let me see here. Courtney says, relaxation. I'm struggling to find relaxation in my transitions, both up and down in the quicker gaits like trot and to canter. What can I do to encourage a relaxed kind of state in these, and also to stretch and relax in the bridle?
That's a great question. So there are a lot of different parts to it and a lot of different places that you could start to work on that. But absolutely, relaxation is going to be the key component there, because to work with a horse who is not relaxed is not going to get you very far. So how do you encourage them to be relaxed? And that's the real question to it. There's no easy answer, because every horse is a little bit different. So something that I would look at right off the bat, because you're wanting to get to the root of why do they rush? Why aren't they relaxed? So I like to sometimes take a step back even and work on them on the lunge line or long lining, if that's something you're comfortable with, and just look at how they move without a rider on their back, because we all know that we can sometimes contribute even totally subconsciously to tension or improper movement. And so sometimes, as a team, you, the rider and the horse, you have to be able to recognize where those weaknesses are and be able to address them on both sides. So I like to take a step back, lunge the horse, work on them in transitions and see, do they act the same? Are they still rushing even when you don't have somebody on their back? What is their movement like? Because a lot of times when they're rushing or uncomfortable, you're coming from a place of conditioning, and that can be maybe a component of weakness or discomfort. And then also the psychological side of maybe there is conditioned behavior. So if it's a horse on the track and you're asking them to canter, maybe the way you're asking them isn't the way they're used to, or maybe they just were used to rushing into everything just from their previous experience. So that's just what they're familiar with, or it can be so many different levels of things. So, and you might not ever get those sort of answers about like previous training and all of that. So you have to break down the pieces of it. So starting on the ground, looking at what they're doing on their own is a great way to do that. And then when you're doing that, you can introduce things like ground poles and cavalettis that can not only make them cognizant of where their feet are, but also to act as sort of like a breaker if they start to get unwound, that they have to pay attention to this thing. They have to pick up their feet, and so that they're not maybe necessarily thinking about rushing the same sort of way. Under saddle, one of the things that I like to work on, I guess, is many different ways that you can go about this, but all the pieces that go into those transitions might also help you if you're going through those steps to identify any points of weakness or discomfort. And so that could be like if you're working to adjust, I like to break it down into the long side and the short side of a ring, or just pick a side. And so you could try shortening and lengthening stride. So sometimes I'll do shortening on the short side and lengthening on the long side, and just have them get in those rhythms. So there's still transitions, but less remarkable, for lack of a better word. So you can work on those baby steps even in between the different gaits. And then when you're working on even things like leg yielding, all those pieces are going to help you in the bigger movements like transitioning. And then another component that it made me think about more, I had heard, and it's sort of old school cowboy sort of rhetoric who I was learning from, but it always made me think about it. One of the ways that he was teaching sort of like trick training, teaching a horse to relax to the point that they could teach them to lie down, even when the rider was on their back, was to continue to encourage piece by piece, not in big steps, just little baby bites, the horse to bring its head down. And sometimes people will brace their elbows, and that creates a disconnect. So when I'm saying ask them to lower their head, you're actually going to be raising your hand a little bit and closing your leg and sort of touching the hairs sort of way, like you're not really putting pressure on, but sort of just touching the hairs on their side with your legs.
Yeah, a little inside rein, inside leg. They flex at the pole or they drop their head and you soften. And it's like that button. Yeah. And it gets lower and lower.
Exactly that.
The only thing I would add.
Lower and lower.
Yeah, exactly. And the only thing I would add in those transitions is that, sometimes, especially in off the track thoroughbred, if you think of like asking a horse to go forward with leg pressure is like from 0 to 10. 0 is you thought about asking, and 10 is like a big old whopping kick, like, are you asking the horse with a standard 6 and maybe your horse needs a 2, like to think about how you're actually asking your horse to go. Like if you're like, oh my God, he's going to go really fast in this transition. I'm going to ask him to trot, but then I'm going to ask him to go, and then he's going to go too fast. And I'm just going to ask, boom, and you squeeze them. Well, of course they're going to blast off because your body and your anxiety have told them that something's coming and I should fear it. I'm not talking about you, person asking the question, listener, just in general. So just always think about like, how can you dial it down? How can you bring your physiology a little bit lower? But as always, I surprise you with questions and you answer them amazingly. And Leandra, you're the best. And we appreciate everything that you do. And thank you for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. Always a pleasure.
Well, it's been a minute since we've had Sarah on from New Vocations, but she's coming in with some cool updates and some things that are happening. Sarah, welcome back to Retired Racehorse Radio.
Thank you. Thank you.
So tell us all the news at New Vocations right now.
So it has been, I feel like all of us have been a little bit on hold before we've been ready to gallop into our fall events, but New Vocations is full steam ahead with our Hunter Jumper Horse Show and also our Dressage Horse Show. So we are very much looking forward to opening our entries. Hopefully this week they will be online for, COVID referrals and all that kind of stuff. But we have a couple different additions to our Hunter Jumper Horse Show, which I think are exciting personally. We actually this year will start on Thursday instead of Friday with a welcome stake in the Rolex Arena, which will be our 3-foot, 3-3, and 3-6 jumpers, which we're very excited to welcome. And we also have added a costume class, which, of course, for those of us who like to relive our childhood are very important. We are really excited to welcome, our people that might not be able to do a lot of the over fences classes. We're hopeful that they will enter some of our pleasures and in hands and our, of course, costume class. The other kind of exciting thing is we actually had nearly 80 war horses last year, which a war horse by our definition is over 50 starts or won over $100,000. So we actually had to split that division for both in hand and under saddle. So that's been really, really exciting to be able to say, look at these amazing horses who have done so well on the track and are able to now come into, horse show competition and
Sarah,
show what they can do in second careers.
I have a question about that war horse definition, because what if it's like one horse in a stakes race and it wins $100,000 in like one race? Is that still called a war horse? So I have discussions with friends about this. Really?
Yeah. We do, yes. We consider them that for our horse show in particular, which is also kind of, the other thing that we're really adamant about is that we don't count any format of blemish. You know what I mean? If they've got a bowed tendon, if they have, anything that's visible, these horses have clearly proved that they have staying power on the track, and we want them to be rewarded in the show ring as well.
That's awesome. Okay, well, I lost that bet.
Well, I apologize for that.
So that's great. So what are some of the other classes you guys have besides the over fences? You've got costume. You said in-hand classes. What are those like?
We do. So we have a couple different classes. We have mares and geldings in our Hunter Jumper Show, and our Dressage Show is separate. So we actually denote them by fillies, geldings, and a certain age definition. But we basically seek to, the horses that do the best, not always the best, but that do well on the track are generally your very beautifully defined thoroughbred, and we like to be able to show them off in hand. But we've also added to the Dressage Show in particular, we also added a combined test, which has been asked for multiple years. So we're excited to be able to offer that, as well as, of course, the costume in hand. We always do a thoroughbred recognition ceremony in both horse shows. And we used to be able to invite them in with their horses, but we had 450 horses at the last horse show, which was slightly overwhelming in the Rolex. So now we invite them, instead of standing there so we can get pictures, we invite them to bring their horses in hand, walk them through the arena, get some pictures taken, and get recognized for being there.
Wow.
That's
cool.
amazing. So if someone wants, are you guys allowing spectators at this, or is there going to be virtual spectating? How does that work?
That is a very good question. We basically are deferring to the Kentucky Horse Park for their most up-to-date, COVID regulations. We are hoping that at least by then the classes that will go in the Rolex, because their stadium is so large, that they will be able to socially distance in there. We're also really excited. We've gotten permission to show the Kentucky Derby actually runs on our Hunter Jumper Horse Show.
Wow.
So we'll be able to show that on the Jumbotron and really kind of celebrate, a lot of the horses that are horse showing with us were bred in Kentucky, and it's kind of a full circle, here are the athletes running on the track, and then in the ring are the athletes that have retired from the track. So we're hopeful that we will be able to have spectators, because we're always very thankful for the cheering fans in the stands.
Oh, that's so neat. And what an experience. Like, that never gets to happen, obviously. How we got here isn't great, but still we're making the best out of a bad situation. And that's so fun. So where can people find more information on the horse show and how to follow it and how to get excited for it? Because I definitely am.
Absolutely. So they can go to newvocations.org. We have an events tab that the horse show is on. Also, our social media kind of follows the different prizes we offer. We actually also do a stall decorating contest, which is like a kind of like a tailgate contest. And we offer awards for the most spirited barn who comes. Last year, it was actually a barn from Louisiana who won. They dressed all their horses up and all their stalls up like Mardi Gras. So we always encourage, people to follow our Facebook and Instagram as well, because we'll post there just in case they can't get to the Kentucky Horse Park in September.
Oh, I'm going to the wrong horse shows. I need to go to this one. Thank you so much, Sarah, for bringing this on. It sounds like a fun time, and it's something for us to look forward to for sure.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Appreciate you.
Well, most of our listeners know that Jamie is a certified Monty Roberts instructor, but for anyone who's new, sometimes we like to do training questions that our listeners bring on if they're an auditor in the HRN auditor page. So we have a question, Jamie, from Kelly, who says, my OTTB has a serious bolting issue. If you trot, no problem at all. But anytime he canters, it's like 3 strides of okay, and then his brain is just gone. It feels like there is nothing left to communicate with, and it becomes extremely dangerous. I've tried running into the walls, trees, anything, but it's like he just doesn't care and just goes faster. What do you recommend for her to do?
Okay, so this is tricky because it's sometimes different with thoroughbreds. And so the thing you want to do if you're generally thinking about training horses is to take the value out of the bad behavior. And in this situation, I find most of the time that bolting horses are pretty lazy horses. And that sounds weird, but a horse that bolts because they're going to get pulled up. They're going to stop because they're going to get run into a fence or run into a tree or run into something just like you're doing, Kelly, which is absolutely the thing I would think to do, which is like, oh my God, stop this freight train from running away with me. So something that I like to do with, and I can't say that usually with a thoroughbred, I would, let's pick up the canter. When they bolt, I would teardrop back to the rail, stop, back them up, canter off again. If they blast off again, teardrop back around to the wall, stop at the wall and back up. And do that. And sometimes teardrop to the left, teardrop to the right. That's a really good exercise for a thoroughbred. But it seems like if you've tried those things, there's one thing you haven't tried. And this is going to sound super weird. You're going to keep super loose reins, and you're going to maybe, just a little light contact with your horse's mouth just so they know you're there. And you're going to go to the walk and you're going to go to the trot. And what I don't know is if the horse is taking off on the canter itself or just all of a sudden blasting off. And either way, you're going to do the same thing. If it's the horse trots and then picks up the canter itself and then picks up the gallop, or whether the horse all of a sudden just goes farts and takes off. The same thing you're going to try is if the teardrop back, teardrop into the rail, back up doesn't work, you're going to actually make them work harder. And it sounds crazy, but make sure, couple things. First of all, always make sure your horse does not have a chiropractic, medical, saddle fitting, ulcer, all of the things. Blanket, make sure your horse is okay. Put some good boots on. Be in an arena with great footing, because what you're going to do is your horse bolts. As your horse bolts, think that all they want to do is stop. So Joy, if your horse just wants to stop and they show a behavior, what is the one thing you could think to do of a horse that wants to stop so it takes off?
Oh, the one thing
make it run. Make it keep going.
The one thing I don't want to do.
Yeah, I know. Exactly. And you've got to have somebody I'm not saying if you're a beginner, Kelly, I don't know how you ride. I always encourage people to send me videos of the behavior so I can act, because it's kind of hard on the radio when I haven't seen anything. But the thing is, you make that horse, you take the value out of the behavior. The horse has found out that if I blast off, they stop me. I win. I get to stop. Even though bolting is more exercise and more work, they still get to stop. And then you're like, oh my God. And then you get off because you're like scared because that's a human thing. So what you want to do is find somebody, if you're not comfortable doing it, to actually, when the horse bolts, pick up that inside rein and put them on a circle and let them gallop their nuts off on a circle, but like not like a 50-meter circle. We're talking like a 15-meter circle. And circle 5 or 6 or 7 times. Let them go. Once they can't gallop in a 15-meter circle for too terribly long. So once they start to slow down, let them go straight. And then they're going to go, oh my God, I got to bolt. And they're going to bolt. And you're going to go, okay, that's totally awesome. Let's bolt. And we're going to bolt in this 15-meter circle 5 to 7 times. And they're going to go, oh crap, that sucks. Okay. They're going to slow down. Their heart rate's going to tell them stop. They're going to, their lungs are telling them this sucks. Then they slow down and you go, okay, let's go straight. And then they go straight and they canter off. And then they're like, oh my God, I got to bolt. And you're like, that would be awesome. Let's totally bolt. Here we go. And you bolt in a circle. And again, you have to make sure that your horse is sound, healthy, your footing is good, and that you're an appropriate rider for this exercise. But that will fix it in I think the last bolter I had within 6 or 7 rides was cantering on while I was holding the buckle. And you just have to be really consistent with it and really have your timing right on it. And to me, that is the way that I fix bolters. But again, you have to be in a place where you're safe. So make sure you're safe first.
Great tips, Jamie. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I love helping people. If you guys have any more questions, you can find me over at Flyover Farm, Jamie Jennings, Certified Monty Roberts Instructor Facebook page, and ask me questions there. I'm happy to help. You can find our show notes and links to today's guest on the website at retiredracehorseradio.com. Like us on Facebook, just search for Retired Racehorse Radio. You can follow us on Twitter at Horse Radio, or I have a Facebook page, Flyover Farm, Jamie Jennings, Certified Monty Roberts Instructor, or email me at jamie@horseradionetwork.com.
You can find me at Joy H. Equestrian on Instagram, or email me at joy@horseradionetwork.com. Thank you so much to our sponsors, Kentucky Performance Products and Bait Saddles. And don't forget to check out all the other shows on Horse Radio Network at horseradionetwork.com. Remember to set your goals high and love to learn from every ride.
And spay, neuter, and geld.
Bye, guys.